Wheel of Genre, the show for readers who prefer their men tall, dark, and with a gaping, toothless insectoid mouth. Right now, we are reading every short story in Ann and Jeff VanderMeer's The Weird Anthology, including this one, Donald A. Wollheim's Mimic. I'm Zach, and this week I'm really, really interested in, I guess, the idea of a short story as just like an intellectual exploration. It's an idea wrapped in the barest of narratives, and I love how effective that is.
I'm Bob. I'm interested in grossness. I was figuring eventually in the weird, we're going to get into the gross. I feel like this story really gets into gross. It's all about bugs, Zach. Why did you make me read something about bugs? Oh.
Hey, don't blame me. Blame Jeff. Blame Ann. What happens in this story, Bob? Tell me about bugs.
Okay, so there's a stranger who comes to town, as you said, and he wears all black. He's got like a black hat. Basically, it's just a regular guy who's in the neighborhood, and our narrator's telling us, we just thought it was weird, but, whatever. He apparently, though, the stranger will just stop. Whenever he sees a woman, he just stops, doesn't move. Woman goes by, and the stranger just keeps going. Long time goes by. The narrator becomes, at least studies to become an entomologist, becomes an entomologist. And then we come back. There's a lot of noise going on in the stranger's apartment. They break in. They see what this stranger has been up to the whole time. And boy, was it shocking. It really bugged me.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I love how like the villain, the weird character of this is basically just the Babadook. But with multiple legs. So how is this gross? I thought it was gross too, I'll say. I thought it was gross too, but what did you like about it?
Let's see. Okay. I really like how it's kind of, I'm not going to say cute. There's something almost fairy tale or folktale about it. There was this guy that it's an urban legend, I guess. There was this guy that we always thought was weird in our neighborhood, but we just kind of accepted that he was weird in the neighborhood. But then that urban legend seems to have teeth at the very end. And I think the other thing that I like about it too is when we discover the truth, there's a twist about this guy. There's many twists. I should just say that. There's many twists. But there is also the potential for a great spread of this weirdness, because we break into the apartment, we hear that there's all this noise, and we find this box. We go and we look at this box. We open it up. All of these bugs fly out of this box, and they all look like little tiny men in little tiny suits, and they all have blue eyes as they fly away. But they also find the dead body of this stranger just lying down in his apartment. There's a big hole in his chest. And they're like, what on earth happened to this guy? Later, as they come out of the building, they see a giant form, almost the size of a building, raise up and fly away. Oh, yeah. I love the potential for further hauntings or further buggings.
I think the fact that he didn't expand on that actually made it significantly better. But this mimicry, and I'm glad I now have a great word for this that I'm probably going to put in my back pocket and pull out again in future episodes. Mimicry to me, I think, is the pure essence of weird at its best. And it took this story for me to really figure that out. So there's this story where you have an insect that it's giant and human-sized, and it looks like a person wearing a cape or an overcoat, but actually that's just part of its wing structure. It's like a beetle that has, anyways. But then think about other stories we've read where mimicry has played a part. I'm thinking, we always come back to Algernon Blackwood's The Willows. It's not quite the same thing. It's not an active deception. What it is interdimensional beings who our brains can't comprehend and instead perceive in 3 dimensions as willow trees, scary willow trees. But it's this idea that there's something which appears normal, but from inside that normal thing, there's something more sinister and disturbing peering back out at you. We've seen this also in Jeff VanderMeer's Area X tetralogy. The existence of this strange area of Area X is filled with these creatures which appear to be one thing, but actually might not be so. A cell phone that's actually alive and Beatle-esque, or doubles of people who have seemingly spawned out of nowhere and are, so agents of this area mimicking other people who are still alive and, feel compelled to fight them to the death. Yeah, I don't know. How do you feel like mimicry fits in, I guess we could say, the tenets of the weird?
It reminds me a lot of Dunwich Horror 2, when we have two twins. One appears mostly human, he just is aging rapidly, and the other one is invisible and becomes this terrible, cosmic, oozing, like wormy being. But they get away with just being regular members of the town, at least for the time being. This, though, mimicry is biological, because we have the entomologist, and he opens up like describing to us, we think that we've solved everything. We know science. We know everything about nature. We've learned so much, yet there's so much that we don't know at all. All of our sciences are just baby sciences. They've only been around for so long, whereas things have been evolving, things have been changing. I think the nature of this creature that mimics so perfectly that no one notices it for years and years and years, it's very strange, because he gives us examples of, studying bugs. He says, okay, there is a moth that can imitate a wasp. It even has a stinger that's made of hair, and it has the same colorings as a moth and as a wasp, and it even flies at the same time of day. So other bugs will think it is a wasp. They'll see it going about its daily routine and assume it is a wasp. This thing develops what passes at least for a human face, what passes at least for like a human cloak, and it just goes around. There's something terrifying about life mimicking what we think about life. There's this monster mimicking humans, and we thought we figured everything out.
I think part of the fun of this story, and maybe the part that like really emotionally resonated with me, was the very public nature of it all. This creature who, the story itself, the narrative itself, doesn't assign any kind of like interiority about it. And yet through its actions, we can kind of get this sense that maybe it has a sense of shame, consciousness at the very least, but like a sense of shame, a sense of who it is within the social structure of the humans. It's painting on eyebrows on its like worm skin. You know what I mean? Like imagine Earthworm Jim. I think we can start with the image of Earthworm Jim, just a mouth and two eyes. So it's painting on eyebrows and then shadowing in the middle of the face to give the impression of there being a nose, even though there's not actually a nose there. But then, it's like hiding and not talking and just kind of like pointing at things that it wants. I don't know, like, the amazing part of this story is that it lived like a lifetime, and with no one knowing the truth of their identity. And I don't know, there's something like, this is one of those stories that makes me empathize a little bit with the monster more than anyone else, any of the protagonists in this story.
What do you think? I mean, is it like an uncanny thing where it's, are we feeling sorry for it? Are we empathizing with it because it is human-like? It has shame, or it's like, oh, I'm not exactly what I would like to be. Or is it an uncanny kind of creepy, it's just doing its biological function. Like it knows if it adapts these habits, like it's not even that it evolves to look a certain way, but now it's evolving to adapt certain human habits to appear more human. Is that disturbing in a threatening kind of way, a biological way? That's how I took it. And it seems like you're saying maybe it is trying to be human and trying to empathize with other humans. I didn't get any empathy. I just got trying to mimic to survive.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say it's trying to be human in the same way, but I would say trying to survive, trying to be human for the sake of survival, trying to blend in. You know what I mean? Maybe part of the sense of empathy that I feel for it comes from the fact that there's no real victims here. You know what I mean? It's not a monster that's like preying on people and, pulling them in and digesting them or laying eggs inside of their body, like alien style, It's just a chill worm beetle guy trying to survive in a rough and tumble New York City. You know what I mean? And God bless it for that.
Zach, I want to talk about whether these bugs are violent or not. I want to talk about the movie. You and I have both just watched the movie by Del Toro, and I want to talk about that. But first, I want to look a little bit at Donald A. Wollheim, who's super interesting. Now, he was the editor-in-chief for Ace Books from 1952 to 1971, and he started the books where you have two stories together. So you read one from this way, and then you turn it over on the other side, a different book starts. And then later in 72, he started DAW. Everyone's doing their Show Me Your DAWs right now, which is the classic yellow spine that says DAW Books. And I think it's the first publisher to just focus on science fiction and fantasy. Now, I love him because all of this, of course, but also he loved beefs. And we love beefs. He had two huge beefs. I mean, like, cataclysmic beefs. He had one with Hugo Gernsback, where we get the name of the Hugo Awards, because Hugo didn't pay him, and he didn't pay other authors. So Wollheim proved it, sued him, got the money for him and his buddies, and then proved it a second time using a fake name and also not getting paid. So anyway, that was one beef. And Gernsback wrote this whole op-ed in his magazine saying, disloyalty, and kicked him out. His other beef was with Tolkien. Did you hear about the beef with Tolkien?
Tell me about it. Who could be? Well, I was going to say who could beef with Tolkien. I can imagine a lot of people beefing with Tolkien.
This one is so great. This beef is just for one phrase that Tolkien said. So Wollheim approached him. I think this is when he was still at Ace, and they approached him about publishing paperback versions of Lord of the Rings, broken up into the 3 books. And Tolkien said, I could never see my writing. This is a phone. This is my phone. Yeah. I could never see my writing in such a cheap pulp, paperback edition, something like that. And so Wollheim is so offended at the idea of thinking pulp or paperback or anything to do with Ace or publishing is lesser than anything else. So he found a loophole, and he's like, oh, these books aren't protected legally. And then he just published them anyway.
What if I stole them?
But he still... What if I just steal them? Yes. So he published the covers are awesome, the way that they published them. But he still gave all, he gave all of the money that Tolkien would have made if the contract had actually been legal. So it's not like he stole them. He just stole them. But he still paid Tolkien. But people also say, his daughter said that was the big bang necessary for science fiction and fantasy in the U.S. because people claim that maybe Tolkien's work would never have been appreciated in America without Wollheim just doing that. So anyway, he's super interesting.
And they say that piracy harms artists. Donald Wollheim begs to differ. I'm really interested in I don't know. I'm noticing this pattern where all the stories that I really like in any anthology, Dangerous Visions, this one, et cetera, they're mostly written by editors. Have you noticed this?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's maybe they've seen enough tricks or the willingness to steal an artist. They read through a bunch of submissions and manuscripts and say oh, you know how that one person has their main character be an entomologist before revealing that the monster is a giant bug, but it gives them a chance to wax philosophical about, I don't know. I'm just thinking of stuff, but it seems I don't know, a lot of the short stories that we read, maybe by, for example, Harlan Ellison, heck, even Jeff VanderMeer, the editor of this anthology, I've been super impressed with the works done by editors. And this, for some reason, they feel like they might have more of a cohesive narrative structure. I don't know. I'm still working through these thoughts. I got a lot to process right now, Bob.
What do you think, Zach? So editors and being exposed to so many different stories, authors will often say the best way to be an author is to read. Clearly, Jeff VanderMeer has done that, putting this, working with Ann and doing this anthology and then incorporating in little weird Easter eggy ways so many of these stories into Southern Reach. But the movie, directed by Guillermo del Toro, I think he's a director, but I also might consider him kind of an editor of weird fiction because he's done the Cabinet of Curiosities, the mini series. where he took lots of different weird fiction stories and produced them. And that's the same thing where he took this. How long is this story? Like 15 pages, I think. It's so short. And he turned it into a full movie. I think Del Toro
Bob,
is
I would be
someone
shocked
who...
if this was. I would be shocked if this was 15 paragraphs. It's
like
so
12?
short.
Okay. So it's very short, and he turns it into a feature-length film. I think Del Toro is really interesting because he's very invested, or at least, he's devoted to these weird fiction stories, and he wants to do them right. And you and I watched the director's cut, I think because he hated the other cut so much because it didn't make it feel weird. I guess, why did he why did he make a director's cut?
I don't know. All I heard was that in the director's cut, he basically got rid of all of the second unit filmography. So I'm presuming that's B-roll or some other plot line or something, but anything that he didn't possibly oversee the actual filming of, he just cut. I'm not clear on the whole thing, and I haven't seen the original version of Mimic, but I'm sure some of our viewers have. So if you guys have any information and have seen both versions, I'd be really curious to know exactly how it's different. But Bob, we got a really, really simple, short, sweet, high concept short story happening right here on the page. How do you think something like that adapts into like a 90-minute film?
I think it's kind of hard to make a movie about bugs and for people to care about it. But I guess a bug's life, but a scary movie about bugs. A lot of the movies in the 50s were, giant. Oh, okay. Bug movies are great. Bug movies are the best movies, apparently. I think in the 50s there were lots of creature features where you just put like the camera really close to a tarantula and then just superimpose it next to people, so it was really horrifying. But this was great. It feels very weird. It feels very like many of the stories in this anthology. But I think it's cool where the very end that we said we liked a lot of this, where they open up the box, all of these little weird suited men fly away, and then the mother also flies away to maybe haunt or take over some other city. And in this movie, people have messed with bugs enough to stop this disease spreading that's killing many people. But in doing that, they've created a superbug. Now, the superbug has started breeding, and they've said, we've designed this bug to, after one generation, just die. But it turns out that this bug has gone, what they say is, well, there's the laboratory where you can test things, and then there's the whole world, which is a much bigger laboratory, and evolution will do its thing. So the bugs start surviving and reproducing in the New York subway lines. I think it's great to have that kind of, that note that's hit at the end of the story of, oh no, it could be a lot worse than the small thing that we just saw. It could get much worse. And the movie starts right there from, oh, it's gotten much worse.
I don't know. I feel like what I loved about this story was the mimicry aspect of it. And I feel like for the adaptation of this short story, what they've done is essentially said, they've taken the parts that lead up to the reveal. So they've taken we barely know anything about science part. So, they're messing with genetics. And then they've taken the insect mimicry, like, the bugs are adapting to mimic other things like humans. All of that stuff is strange. It's science fiction and it's horror. But I didn't get a sense of the weird from this film. And for me, like to get that, I would want to see, this idea of, these giant cockroaches walking among us, living among us in everyday life. And they alluded to that. I think that the film was really clever in the way that it seemed to play off of the audience's possible familiarity with the short story by showing, for example, like shoes, long socks and dark pants, and kind of panning the camera upward. But when the camera gets to the top, it's always a human face. But I got the sense that Del Toro wanted to give us a knowing wink to the story, because he would dress several characters up in this kind of buggy Babadook kind of way.
Well, for sure. I think that was very intentional, especially at the end when you're looking down at the subway entrance and there's a black coat coming up. Who's it going to be? I won't say who it is, but I thought that there is small explorations. I mean, there's the big exploration of, okay, the bug has mimicked us and it has a human-like face. And they keep saying the carapace of the bug, where it looks like a really terrifying human face. But I think there are little mini bits of mimicry too, because there's the boy who plays the spoons, and he could play spoons to match any frequency of a bug clicking. So it's like he can connect to the bugs. And I think he might be spared because he is communicating. There's another mimicry where they take, what would you like, the pheromone sacs, I don't know, the smell of the bug, and they do kind of the zombie thing. Okay, if you rub yourself in all of this, the bugs will think that we are them. So the humans have to mimic the bugs, which I thought was very interesting because that's not in the short story. So like them using biological goop, using biology, they cover themselves. The boy also adapts to bugs. He mimics bugs, and in that way, he is also spared because it's like he's talking to them. They think he is a bug.
Yeah, it's a cool double reversal, that Del Toro is doing there. It's hard because I almost never want to compare like film versions to written versions because at the end of the day, they're adaptations, and different mediums require different things. This short story has almost no characters, you know what I mean? And the film requires basically like, a love story. They're trying to get pregnant. A disaster. There's, a plague spreading through the city that needs to be stopped. All these other things are going on. I guess I'm just saying, at the end of the day, I will share this short story with friends. I will read it to my children before they fall asleep at night and give them the worst nightmares of their life. But I will probably never watch that movie again.
You're like that terrible guy with the magical lamp showing all of the kids the terrible centipedes crawling into the room. I don't know. I really like Guillermo del Toro when he adapts things, and he does what I think is really interesting about adapting something from a short story to a movie. I'm not really interested in seeing the exact thing portrayed in a movie. I don't really care if it's faithful to the book or not. I'd like to see someone say, "Oh, I really loved this story, and now I'm going to take it in a completely different direction because they're actually participating in it." I feel like Guillermo del Toro just really loved this and wanted to make it, and everyone's like, "You're going to waste a lot of money. No one's going to see this." That's probably what happened. But the people who have to make it exactly like the short story are being paid. They've been requested to produce something. So this I thought was great, where he said, okay, mimicry, what happens if humans have to mimic the bugs? He also finds little, like you said, there's Easter eggs. I think one Easter egg is so small where at one point, I think because a security guard, a janitor, and the narrator, who's the entomologist in the short story, they go up and they see the dead body of the bug. And at that point, the janitor, does the sign of the cross. And that is the only mention of the cross, but then they add a whole church across the street from the boy playing the spoons. They put it into the story because it's mentioned briefly in this short story. And I think that's an interesting mimicry too, because the priest there is mimicking what a priest should do, but he's just horrible. He's not a good person at all. And I think it's interesting to see all of these little tiny bricks from the short story taken and then turned into a much bigger structure while still exploring that central idea of mimicking something.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. And I agree with what you're saying that ultimately, for me, I don't care at all whether it's a accurate and faithful adaptation. The point of the adaptation is to make it fit the form that it's going into. And forms require very, very different things, moving from, printed word to visual medium. If I was going to make a musical theater adaptation of this short story, I don't think anyone could fault me for it not being 100% faithful, as I have the choir saying,
the kids playing spoons. There's a quote that I think is really important in this story that Guillermo del Toro really thought about for making the movie. After they see the bugs clad in their black suits with their expressionless faces and their dots of watery blue eyes flying away, which I thought was great. He then goes, "We knew of army ants and their imitators, yet it never occurred to us that we too were army ants of a sort. We knew of stick insects, and it never occurred to us that there might be others that disguise themselves to fool, not other animals, but the supreme animal himself, man. And when Del Toro takes that and the inciting it, the beginning is, oh no, these bugs could be everywhere imitating us. But then the only way that we can survive is to imitate the bugs. I think it's interesting.
Nature's great dance of evolution. I love it. I love to see it. If only Charles Darwin could have lived long enough to see Mimic by Guillermo del Toro. Rest in peace, big guy. All right. Well, I think that we need to prioritize Donald A. Wollheim. I don't know how much more he wrote. Hopefully a lot, because I thought this was wonderful. And you know what? I'm even down to watch Guillermo del Toro again. I'll say it.
He's great. He's got so many good movies.
I know. I've seen a lot of them. All right. I'll talk to you later, Bob.
Talk to you later, Zach.